Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon and I are going to talk about the inaction of NBA free agency. We'll talk about Cam Whitmore to the Wizards. We'll talk about Deandre Ayton officially signing with the Lakers. We'll talk about Mike Brown and the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks finally have a head coach. But we're actually going to talk a lot about what's left in free agency and why there's not a ton out there at the moment. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? I feel like this is the first time we're recording in a while where there wasn't some like big, huge news that like was really pressing, whether it's a NBA Finals instant live or start of free agency, the draft, whatever. There's still stuff going on, right? We had the U19s, we have the start of Summer League, a few moves in free agency. So it's not like the offseason is dead or over. It just doesn't seem like there's just like these big, huge things that need to be discussed.
That's absolutely right. I think we're going to save. How much U19s have you watched?
So I've watched a bunch of the USA games. I've not seen the gold medal game today. You'd be so proud of me. I went to Jurassic World today with the family and watched that this afternoon. So Team USA's gold medal win is queued up after we get done recording this evening.
Yeah, I am excited to talk to you about U19s because there is some stuff there to discuss. AJ DeBansa won MVP and should not have won MVP. I'm just going to straight up say it.
Yeah, his defense through the tournament has been, again, I haven't watched today's game, but was something. And is it Michael
Brown?
Yeah, I feel like the broadcast was calling him Michael Brown was really impressive. I liked his game. There's some interesting players on there. So,
yeah, like Michael Brown was clearly the MVP of this tournament. I'm just going to look into the camera and say it. There's like no disputing this for anybody that watched Team USA's games. Michael Brown was the MVP of this tournament. And for him not to win is pretty baffling to me, to be honest. But we'll talk about that maybe later this week. Maybe we'll do that on like Tuesday or something once I'm landed in Vegas, and we'll like kind of go through all of that because I'm going to Summer League this coming week. Obviously, I'll be in Las Vegas. Bryce will be there. We'll probably do a couple podcasts. We'll figure out all of that at a later date. But yeah, I'm excited. And let's talk about NBA free agency. So I don't have to wallow in the fact that Paul Skeens had 10 strikeouts, 0 walks, and only threw 78 pitches, and they pulled him in the 5th inning for reasons beyond my comprehension. So let's just be, happy and be happy for the experiences we had, as opposed to the second consecutive 1-0 loss that the Pirates experienced today. So that's where we're at.
Love it.
Okay.
I at least know who that is. That's about all I can provide is I know who that is and what position he plays.
So let's go I want to start with Cam Whitmore.
Okay.
Because Cam Whitmore gets traded to the Washington Wizards. He's getting thrown into what deal? Is he getting thrown into some sort of deal, right?
I did not see that. He wasn't part of the huge one, right? He wasn't part of the
No, he wasn't. So he's thrown into the deal with the Wizards and Pelicans for, I believe it's CJ McCollum and Jordan Poole, if memory serves.
Okay.
So it's basically Cam Whitmore for 2 second-round picks is the reality here. And I feel like I've been trying to prepare Rockets fans for the fact that Cam Whitmore was probably going to be traded and that the return was not going to be as strong as what people expected. There was not a first-round pick on the table for Cam Whitmore. That's just the reality, right? Like I can There has not been one that I have heard. Like it's not a thing, right? And I feel like I've been like kind of trying to soft pedal this for people a little bit. And do I think it's like smart for the Rockets to give up on Cam Whitmore? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I like the player, I like the upside, but for where they are in their team build, Cam Whitmore doesn't make a lot of sense as like a scorer off the bench who does not defend and is who he is, right? But for the Wizards, it makes an immense amount of sense because it's low stakes basketball. He gets to develop in the ways that he needs to develop. I like this deal for everybody. And do I think the value is right for Whitmore? No, I probably would have preferred to get more, but I also understand them not wanting him on the team either, given that they're about to enter like a totally different phase of their like organizational development.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by the return, the value of just a couple second round picks. But I think especially because we talked about this. I asked you this question before the Dorian Finney-Smith signing. Does this team need one more wing? Like, are they going to count on Cam Whitmore? Do they need to go get somebody else? I feel like when the Dorian Finney-Smith signing happened and you still have Tari Eason coming off the bench, I'm not saying there's no minutes for Cam Whitmore. There absolutely could be minutes for Cam Whitmore. But I think it made it a situation where this is a team that's obviously trying to compete for a championship next year and over the next 2 or 3 seasons and don't seem to have a whole lot of time for developing and letting a young player play through his mistakes and figure things out. And they have the requisite players to not need that from him. And so to me, it just made a lot of sense after they went ahead and rounded out the wing room with Dorian Finney-Smith. You also like Amin is so versatile. We talked about this roster is very versatile, in the way they can do it. So they have enough rotation players. I love this for Cam Whitmore more than anybody, Sam. Like if he's going to make it, I think a change of scenery, especially with a team who's not necessarily trying to win next year or the next couple years, that you can give a little bit of a leash to is a good spot for him. Houston, no matter what people think about Cam Whitmore, he was the 20th pick. It's not like he was a lottery. Like he ended up 20th that year. And so Houston gets a couple second rounders back. Again, I don't love the value, but if they're doing right by Cam Whitmore, I kind of respect it a little bit. And I like it for Washington as they continue to acquire young talent like this. And, they have some vets around to hopefully so you can really see who is what and what they can be. But I kind of like the young talent that they have accumulated there in Washington.
Yeah, like I saw people connect the Wizards with Jonathan Kuminga. And to me, this is so much better of a bet than Jonathan Kuminga on the price point, more than anything. Yeah. I'm not saying that Cam Whitmore has proven as much as Kuminga has at this point in his career, but given that Kuminga was going to cost, I don't know, he seems to want 30 million or 25 million in free agency. Like we'll see what he ends up getting. Given that it was going to cost a significant price point, I would much rather just trade the 2 second round picks for Cam Whitmore and take the shot on the like scoring wing with passing issues and defensive infrastructure issues as opposed to Whitmore or as opposed to Kuminga at that significant number. Right. So it's worth just kind of laying out who Cam Whitmore is real quick. So 10.8 points per game in 98 games throughout the course of his career. He shot 45, 36, 71 from the field. In terms of like the per 100 possession numbers though, because he doesn't play crazy minutes. He's played 17 minutes per game. He's averaging 30 points per 100 possessions throughout the course of his career, which if you reduce it down to, what a normal game is, like Whitmore, if he was to play 30 minutes in a game right now, would probably be averaging 20 points per game is the reality. Now, the question is, does what he takes off of the court actually help at the end of the day? Does it help your team win? And right now, I think that Cam is probably not good enough with the ball in his hands as a passer and as an overall decision maker, in addition to some defensive issues in terms of his engagement away from the ball. I actually think like on the ball this year, he showed like some real switchability. And when they used him in that way, he was a little bit more effective, but he absolutely like gets lost off the ball and is still clearly like learning how he has to function within the context of a team defense right now in terms of his rotations, in terms of everything like that. So Cam Whitmore was not actually like a valuable player on the court yet. The thing is, though, that he is 20 years old. He turns 21 in a couple of days. There is still a ton of upside here as a scorer. And this is why I loved him pre-draft. Like, he is a joke athlete. Like, the way that he combines explosiveness and power is genuinely like pretty special, on top of being able to shoot off of the pull-up. But again, like, it's very limited to that right now. Like, he is not a guy who sees the court well. He's not a guy who really knows where he should put the ball within the context of the team. So all of those things being equal, you understand why this didn't quite work for Houston, who just acquired Kevin Durant and is taking this next step forward. But you also see where this could really work out for Washington. And I think I would bet on it working out, at least in some respect, for Washington. He's too talented to not be a really good basketball player at some point.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate some of the points you made, because they were some of the ones I bolded whenever I went back through my notes. And the first and foremost is he was underrated as an athlete in that draft class, in my opinion, because that was the Amin and Asar draft. And so if you weren't Amin and Asar in that draft class, you know, if you weren't one of those two guys, I feel like we didn't talk about your athleticism enough. Or like when I say we, I mean collectively in the NBA draft world. You may have he's a different type of athlete of those. I feel like he's just like this 2 feet explosive athlete. I think he can really score.
Just for context, like, would he be the best athlete in the 2025 NBA draft?
So what we're talking, Adu is probably a little bit better of an athlete, maybe. Him and Adu are probably on the same level.
I think Thiero is probably a slightly better athlete, but Thiero like never stays healthy is the issue. Like,
Thiero to me season, has a little bit more fluidity in his movements than what Cam does. Cam is a little bit boxy, I think. Is that fair?
Yeah, for sure.
VJ's probably a little bit better of an athlete.
So that's one where like the strength really matters to me.
That's fair. Sure.
Like him being like way more, like VJ is a lot more like elastic in his movements athletically, whereas Cam is a lot more boxy, but like the strength and power to be able to move guys and everything like does matter in a real respect. We see it with VJ, right? So like they're on the same level to me. Like Drake Powell's another one that's like a super athlete, obviously, but he's like more of a testing athlete than like this translates to the NBA, athlete right now. So he's in that group though, for sure.
Yeah. And then the other thing I agree with wholeheartedly, I think my biggest concern, and this is where I think Washington really has to like lock in on this if they want it to be successful. I think my biggest concern is the off the ball defense. Like, yes, there are passing concerns going back to college, and I get it. And people are always going to bring up the assist percentage and all of that. Like, I understand it. I think I'm more worried about him ball watching, him understanding scheme situations, him navigating off ball screens, seeing weak side rotations, box outs, those type of things, than I am with any other aspect of his game. I know he can guard on the ball when he's locked in. I've seen enough of it that if you can get it consistent, that it will be in a decent place. I know he can score the basketball. I know he can get out in transition. I know he can move off the ball offensively and do those things. I believe that you can eventually get him where the passing is good enough for a scorer, right? Like probably an off the bench scorer, but a scorer. I think why it wasn't going to work in Houston, why it wasn't working in Houston and definitely wasn't going to be this year, is the off the ball defense is the biggest area of growth for him. And he will be a very interesting player to track to see if that is something he can grow and improve throughout his career, or it's just never something he's able to latch onto or do consistently or take and value as much as he needs to. But in terms of the bets or the risk, whatever, I'm all about it for Washington. 2 second-round picks for this level of talent, and you're still a couple years away from having to pay him if it does hit in a positive way. I think that's a really smart bet for the Wizards with where they're at.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I like the move for the Wizards, to be clear. This is the kind of move that a team in their position should be going for, in my opinion. And you look at their wing room now, Bilal Coulibaly, Trey Johnson, Cam Whitmore, obviously Bub Carrington in the backcourt. Will Riley is more of like a 2-guard to me right now than, like a true wing, even though he's a little bit bigger. And then obviously Keyshawn George. I love that they're just loading up on athletic long wings and kind of seeing where it goes from here. This is an interesting, intriguing way to build a roster. Now, one thing I will note with the Washington team build, not a whole lot of passing there, right? Like, I think Alex Sarr is a really good passer for a big man. I think that Trey Johnson certainly showed flashes, like especially near the back half of the year for Texas this year, and I think he will continue to improve as a passer. I think Will Riley showed some occasional flashes here and there as a passer at Illinois. Keyshawn George showed a couple of flashes here and there. He grew up as a point guard playing, in the French league, being from Switzerland and everything when he was young, right? But there's not an emphasis on passing and playmaking, I guess I would say here from this team build, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's still early.
Everyone score first, I guess, is my point, as opposed to all of the guys we're talking about, passing is the number 2 option. Or number 3 option in some cases.
But what's interesting is most of them are off the ball players in some capacity, at least to start a possession. It is kind of unique in regards to that, where I think they're still looking for their primary number 1 on the ball guy that kind of creates everything for the offense. And that's okay. Figure out what some of these other guys are. Maybe you eventually package them all together. The other thing is I'm okay with their veteran situation right now. We've talked Chris Middleton. We've talked Marcus Smart, CJ McCollum. I'm okay him coming in there. So that way some of these other guys don't have to be gunners. I like Kelly Olynyk in terms of a floor spacing big. Defensively, it's going to be probably pretty bad because none of those vets other than Smart, obviously, and even Middleton at this point in his career, that's not something he's necessarily known for. But I think offensively, you have an infrastructure of veterans, a floor spacing big with KO, those type of things where you can put these guys in position to see what they are and see what kind of success they can have. But I'm with you that the ball could be a little sticky at times. It will be interesting, but in general, I don't mind what they've tried to do here in terms of, obviously, they're still very much in the rebuild process.
So here's my final question here. We've mentioned a lot of wings between all of the guys we just talked about. Trey Johnson, who just went 6th overall. Bilal Coulibaly, who went 7th overall 2 years ago and is very clearly their best defensive player right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
We've got Keyshawn George, AJ Johnson, Will Riley. We've got Corey Kispert and Chris Middleton as well. And Middleton's going to play. Chris Middleton's better than these guys right now. He is going to play. That's a lot of minutes in the wing room.
Yeah.
And I do think we might see another shoe to drop in a trade here, would be my guess. People can say AJ Johnson is a guard. AJ Johnson's a 2. He's not a point guard. He's going to be playing, ostensibly on the wing, right? I wonder if Corey Kispert comes available is kind of my question, but I like the idea of having a floor spacing shooter too. So he's just the one that's expensive already, and you can make the case for moving him. And I think that there are myriad teams that would be interested in Corey Kispert just because he's a real shooter on a really good contract who, his contract declines from $13.9 million over the next 2 years to $13 million in 2027, 28 and 2028, 29, where that final year is a team option where he'll be making 6.6% of the salary cap projected right now. Like that's a really good contract for somebody. So I'm very interested to see how the Wizards handle all of this. It's more just they have so many wings that it's going to be hard to get all of these guys time, I think, than anything.
It's a fair point because I've come on here and kind of crushed the Nets for their process of trying to develop 3 guards that are mostly at their best playing on the ball. I do trust or like, I don't say trust, but I am more okay with leaning into multiple wings because you can play, theoretically, you could play 3 of those guys depending on the opponent and who those 3 guys are. But there's enough variation in all of those guys. You can play 3 of them at the time. I just, whenever I count through the roster, I think there's 12 or 13 guys, if you include the veterans, that probably want to play / you want in the rotation. And I want those vets in the rotation, Sam. I don't necessarily want them running out 5 young guys at all times. Every once in a while it'll be fun, but I think Middleton being on the floor at times is important. I think KO being on the floor at times is important. McCollum, Marcus Smart. Now, how healthy are those guys? Those type of things. And maybe you start the season with this and it's like, hey, Cam is really knocking down shots. Trey is really knocking down shots. Bilal has improved. Sar's knocking down shots. You know what? We can go ahead and move Kispert now because we think we have the floor spacing we need. You know what I mean? And so that's what they need to see first. Because as we've talked about, as I watched for 4 seasons, not having floor spacing around a young team is the quickest way to find out nothing about your young players.
No, it's 100% true. It's 100% true. Okay. Let's move next to Deandre Ayton to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Okay.
So Deandre Ayton is signed with the Los Angeles Lakers, or at least I think that deal is done, right? Like it's gone final.
I have to see if the Lakers
I think
tweeted out.
My read is that if it's not final, it's going final, right? That feels like where this is going. He has signed for, what is it? It's 2 years, like 19 million or something. 2 years, 17 million. 2 years, 16.6 to be exact. After that buyout with the Portland Trailblazers, we talked about this a little bit when the team came to the decision in Portland to remove DeAndre Ayton from the roster and buy him out. It seems like Ayton took 10 million off of the number for the Blazers to get to a different situation. He's going to make something like 8 or 9 million this year from the Los Angeles Lakers. Look, I think that this is probably as good as the Lakers could have done given the situation. I would rather have both Jake LaRavia and DeAndre Ayton than Dorian Finney-Smith. Now, like, I believe that they would have had access to the mini mid-level with Dorian Finney-Smith had they decided to go this route. And in theory, I guess that you could have tried to, do LaRavia into the mini mid-level, and then it would be basically DeAndre Ayton for Dorian Finney-Smith. I think that you can make a case either way there, given their need at the center position. I think Finney-Smith is a better player for like a team that's ostensibly trying to win right now than DeAndre Ayton is, but they desperately needed a big, like in the worst possible way. So I don't have like too strong of an opinion here on whether this is the right move or the wrong move. I just am very curious to watch how this all unfolds, because I would genuinely very strongly hope that DeAndre Ayton sees this as his last chance to get like a real payday at the very least, if not just outright to, be part of a winning team as a winning player. And because it's what it is. Like, this is his last shot, in my opinion. Otherwise, he's going to be on minimums if he like fucks this up in a way. I would hope that he understands this situation and goes in and plays exceptionally hard and does all of the things that he is supposed to do. There have been stretches of his career where we have seen that. I point to the third year, particularly in Phoenix, where they went to the NBA Finals and he basically did exactly what he was asked. He was very good defensively in the playoffs that year, and he was also somebody that consistently ran hard to the rim in the playoffs that year. After that, it got real funky, and the attention to detail, I think it's fair to say, did not always line up with what his skill set could bring in terms of running the court hard in transition consistently, setting screens that made contact consistently, being willing to roll all the way hard to the rim as opposed to like short rolling into that like little mid-range area where he gets his little, 15 footer that he likes and can make. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say he can't make them, but this is a dude that has like better tools at the center position to be a rim runner than anybody in the league. And now he's playing with Luka, who is better at finding those players than anybody in the league. Basically, if he just runs hard to the rim, like he did with Chris Paul, he will find his way into a 16 and 11 points per game, rebounds per game kind of role with the Lakers. But man, I am excited to see the interactions with him and JJ Redick, because there is some real comedy potential here between JJ and DeAndre Ayton. JJ seems a bit high strung. Let's go with seems a bit on edge a lot of the time. And DeAndre Ayton very rarely seems like that is the case. And a lot of the little eccentricities, we'll say, to be kind to DeAndre in his game, are the kinds of things that JJ Redick, being very detail oriented, I think might genuinely lose his mind about. So, Bryce, where are you at on the DeAndre Ayton to the Los Angeles Lakers signing?
Yeah, I mean, and they also brought back Jackson Hayes, which I'm sure will help JJ's blood pressure just as much. Listen, I think you're right. Like, I think DeAndre could have a monster year. And the thing is, it's not just Luka. We always bring up Luka. LeBron is one of the best court mappers our game has ever seen. And Austin Reeves isn't too shabby as a pick and roll partner, passer, etc. either. So DeAndre Ayton will not play a minute. I would guess he plays very few minutes this next season without at least one of those three guys on the court. And so for DeAndre, like, do you want to thrive? Do you want to turn down that player option next offseason and get a real payday? And to me, for him to do that is pretty simple. You just outlined it all. Rebound the basketball, especially defensively, run as hard as you can to the rim, catch lobs, or in the half court, set real screens, and then sprint to the rim. And then whenever the defense is playing it in a certain way, then you get to show off your short roll stuff. You get to hit a mid-range jumper whenever they're putting on two on Luka. Maybe you can step out and hit some of your pick and pop stuff in those situations as well. If you want to shoot a couple threes every once in a while. He's never taken, last year was the most at 0.8. Like, not really a floor spacer, but, maybe you get one every once in a while. So I just, if he buys into it, Sam, I think this can be real successful. If he doesn't, I mean, it's going to be a disaster, because the role is very simple and it's not post isolations. It's not throw it to you in the mid post and let you go to work. If that's what he wants and that's what he's going there for, this is probably going to end not so well. But I made the joke a week ago. Who was the best center on the roster? LeBron James was my joke. DeAndre Ayton is better at center than LeBron James if he'll do the things we're talking about. And so this could be a huge win for the Lakers if he'll come in with the right mindset.
Yeah, I agree. If he comes in with the right mindset, DeAndre Ayton could be like an 18 and 12 guy next year.
Yeah.
If he comes in with the right mindset. Like, it's really the key. Does he come in and decide, okay, I'm going to do the right things. I'm going to run back in transition consistently. I'm going to make sure I'm available. When he's at the rim, he can be an impediment at the basket. There are moments where he's not, where he chooses not to make rotations on the weak side and everything, but like, he is big enough to consistently make an impact there. It's a significant upgrade on Jackson Hayes. Like, there is we can't even begin to discuss. It is a significant upgrade on Jackson Hayes. So in that vein, the Lakers center position is way better than it was. Again, though, like DeAndre Ayton took, basically like 1.5 jumpers outside of 16 feet per game and made, I don't know, I'm like doing quick math, 17 out of 84 of them from outside of 16 feet. So sorry, he took 2 of them per game. And that's pretty awful. You can't really live with those shots, right? So if he's in that 3 to 15 foot range in like taking a little floater or taking like a push shot or a mid-range jumper, I'm fine with that. Like I think that's reasonable, but it really is the motor for me. Like he needs to bring it every night and needs to consistently showcase it. And I think there's a chance he will, because you look through all of the statements DeAndre Ayton has made. Like he said, like, what's the most important thing to you? Like, getting a second contract, right? And I think there's a chance with this being a contract year where he can go play as well as he possibly can, go do his thing, and then hit the market again in a free agency market that will be much better next season. There's a chance he really does this well and performs well and is exactly what the Lakers need. It's just such a big delta in terms of what it could be. Like this could be the Lakers feel like they need to move him by midseason because JJ Redick is going gray and they're like losing their minds trying to get him engaged and stuff. Like, or it could be that he's amazing and he's exactly what they needed. He's the perfect rim runner for Luka, and they seem to somehow have a connection. Like it could go any number of ways is what makes this such an interesting get for the Lakers.
And I think what makes it interesting for the Lakers, for DeAndre, is he's young enough to sign a multi-year deal if he shows all of this. He will just turn 27 here. I think it's like in 2 or 3 weeks. And so as a 27-year-old hitting the market next year, let's say he averages 16 and 11, 17 and 11, something like that. Like he buys into all the things we're talking about. He's not all defense, but he plays physical. He makes rotations, plays with verticality, averages 7 or 8 defensive rebounds every night, catches these lobs, stays out of, just 1 or 2 jumpers a game, but otherwise he's rim running, doing his thing. That's attractive to the Lakers, Sam. Like, I don't know what the mechanism would be if he turns down his player option to then sign there long-term, but maybe he's their guy long-term, right? We're talking about them needing a long-term answer at center. Maybe he's the guy. It doesn't have to be somebody, some other team, but at 27 years old, hitting the market off a season like that, like he could cash in with a multi-year deal, not just like 1+1s and stuff like that. He could go out and get a 3 or 4 year deal at his age, and he just got to go. And I'm with you. I'm leaning into, I think he's going to do it. Like, it seems like somebody at the point of in his career where it's like, dude, you just got bought out. Like you just got told to go away in Portland. And now here's a chance with the freaking Lakers and Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves to really go out and not just make a payday, Sam, but if he plays that well, we're talking about a top 4 team in the West, right? Like if he's this guy, we're not picking them over OKC, but a healthy Lakers team with this version of DeAndre Ayton has to be top 6 at the very least, right?
Definitely. If he comes in and plays really hard and is like the guy that he can be, I think they are just a straight playoff team. For sure.
So, I mean, that's a huge opportunity for DeAndre Ayton whenever you're talking about just having gotten bought out. So I hope he takes advantage of it just for his sake and the sake of watching fun basketball.
I couldn't agree more. Like, I really hope that he takes advantage of it because this is a real opportunity for him, is the reality. Like, he has a chance to be exactly what they need and has a chance to resuscitate and re-energize his own career. Like, he is still somehow only 26 years old. He turns 27 at some point this month, right? Like, there's still a lot of time here for DeAndre Ayton to get to where he has to go and become what he is capable of being. But this is the chance here. Like, this is the one.
Yep.
And I hope that he recognizes it. I hope that everybody around him recognizes it and motivates him to become the player he's capable of at the end of the day. So the other thing I will note with the Lakers, I like this drastically more than the Mark Williams alternative as well. Like, getting DeAndre Ayton on a buyout for $9 million a year, $8.5 million a year, whatever it's going to work out to being, is so much better. So much better for the Lakers than paying Dalton Connect a first round pick swap and a first round pick for Mark Williams. Like, they have real flexibility now to be able to go out and like make another move at some point. And I'll be honest, like, defensively, I don't see a whole lot of difference between Mark Williams and DeAndre Ayton and DeAndre in general. I know that this year he only played 40 games, but like, DeAndre will miss time throughout the course of the season. Like, he obviously had the weird, like, what was it? The like 25 game suspension or whatever in, I think it was 2022, if memory serves. But like 67 games in 2023, 69 games in 2021. He played 55 in Portland last year, but they kind of shut that down early again, right? Like, DeAndre is not nearly as much of a health concern as Mark Williams is either. So I'm intrigued to see where the DeAndre Ayton experience goes with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I will watch every Lakers game because, my goodness, the JJ Redick, DeAndre Ayton interactions have a real chance to be just like absolutely incredible.
Yes, it will be amazing.
Okay. Next up, Jay Huff is going to the Indiana Pacers. I mean, this is a deal that we love, right? Like, this makes absolute sense for everybody involved. It is for a second round pick and a second round pick swap. It's not a crazy number, right? But man, this is the exact kind of player that works for this Pacers scheme. Jay Huff plays hard. He is a good rim protector. He is super drop coverage. Like, you cannot play him out in space in like different kind of coverages, in my opinion. Like, he is a drop big as much as you can play drop, right? But he can step out and shoot in the way that this team really likes. I think he's the best center on the roster from day one. Like, even if they signed Isaiah Jackson, I would guess that Jay Huff is going to start for the Indiana Pacers from day one. So yeah, I love the pickup. I love the fit. I think it's a great price point. Obviously, the Grizzlies just had to kind of continue to create space for a Jaren Jackson renegotiation and extension. This helps with the flexibility there. I get why they're doing this. I wouldn't be excited about giving up Jay Huff for, essentially a pick and a swap. But yeah, this is a great pickup for the Indiana Pacers to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is. I mean, Jay Huff, was like
for what it's worth, his first name is James.
It is James. Okay. That's why I said it, because I was on his real GM page and that's what it has. But I just remember walking into the back gym at Thomas and Mack and like, who is this dude catching lobs and like being crazy athletic? And, like, I wasn't familiar with this game the way I should have been. And then I think it was Orlando that picked him up originally, and then he ended up with Memphis. I mean, and that's the other thing is, if this goes well, he's on like a silly contract for them. And,
yes.
and I don't think he's going to become Indiana's heir apparent to Miles Turner. That's not what I think here. But, in a year that's a little bit of a gap year for them where, we talked about, let's just we can take a little bit of time here to figure out who the real replacement is. If he starts 70 games for them this year, he fits the system with the way he can run the floor and then has the ability to stretch it a little bit. Maybe he becomes your backup, right? And that's okay. I'll trade a second round pick in a pick swap for my backup center who's making
totally.
What is it? 2 million, 2.4, 2.7, and then a club option for 3 million in 27, 28. Again, I'm not going to sit here and like talk crazy like, hey, he's all of a sudden going to just like extremely blow up and become the starter. But I think this is a really smart move for them for 25, 26. And then I think it has long-term payoff in terms of just a really a guy that fits what they do that they can add to their rotation. So I like this move a lot. I thought it made a ton of sense whenever it came across, Twitter or whatever. And I mean, I guess for Memphis, you're just very crowded in that front court between, a healthy Zach Edey, a healthy Brandon Clark. You brought back Santi, Jaren Jackson Jr. And so, maybe they feel like they're doing J Huff. I mean, they are doing J Huff a great solid here, sending him to a place where he's going to start, I would assume, every game he's healthy in 25-26.
Yeah, no, I would. I mean, look, they might do something else at some point.
Sure,
change that. But right now, I think he's probably their best center on the team. He's going to make $2.3 million this season, $2.7 million in 2026-27, and $3 million in 2027-28 with a team option on that final year. I mean, this is such an easy decision to me. It just is. Your worst case scenario, in my opinion, and by the way, he only has like $400,000 guaranteed in 2026-27. So like it's if it doesn't work out, they just get off of J Huff after this year, right? But this is such an easy decision to me to give J Huff a shot here like this if you're Indiana, because like you said, the worst case scenario I think here, based off of what we've seen from J Huff, is that he's probably a backup center. And that he's probably better than like the Thomas Bryant, Tony Bradley minutes that we saw in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
J Huff averaged 7 points, 2 rebounds. He is not a great rebounder. I will say that. Like, I've never felt like he is particularly good at being able to like go and high point the ball and read the ball off the glass. But he just does like a lot of other stuff that is really valuable. Spaces the court super well. He hit 40.5% of his threes, 79% from the line. He is a real shot blocker on the interior because of his ability to just play and drop and stay enormous. When he was at Virginia, it was always the same deal, right? Like, I really think that Huff is going to, I think you said it perfectly. He is not their long-term center option. I do not think he is their, this should stop them or preclude them from going out and going to find another option, right? But I do think that this is at the very least their long-term backup center option, and they have him for 3 years and like $7.5 million, which is a crazy, crazy number to have a backup center for.
I mean, Sam, the worst case is he's your third center, which I believe that J Huff is unquestionably the third center on a team, especially one where he's
definitely an NBA player, like 100%.
Especially with the scheme fit, his contract is fine if that's all he ends up being, right? Like, even if he ends up being that for them, like if they go out and make 2 moves tomorrow that gets them the starter and the second unit center, and now all of a sudden he becomes the third guy, you're still fine with this move, in my opinion. Like, maybe you're like, really, do you want to give up that draft capital? But the contract absolutely screams that. So to me, it's only an upside play. And I do think there's an upside of, man, he can really shoot it. We already tried to figure out or had to figure out how to insulate a not great defensive rebounding center with Miles Turner. So this roster already knows how to cover for that on its way to Eastern Conference title or Eastern Conference appearance and NBA Finals appearance. If he really shoots it, he really figures this out, running the floor, being athletic, maybe gets a little bit better defensively with bigger minutes. Like, we'll see. I'm not predicting it, but again, I love it. And then Memphis, like I said, they have the room. The guys in the room, they bring in Jacques Landale right after they trade J Huff. Like, their depth is going to be okay. Like, they're fine. And you get a little bit of draft capital for it. I mean, I would rather just keep J Huff if I was the Grizzlies. But again, if you're trying to do right by somebody, I tend to believe those things come back around to you over time.
Well, and even beyond just doing right by J Huff, right? Like, they had to create the space.
Oh, yeah.
Moving J Huff probably gives them a little bit more flexibility with the Cole Anthony buyout, and gives them a little bit more flexibility to where, like, okay, if Cole Anthony only ends up giving us back $2 or $3 million or something, we can move John Concher now instead of having to worry about getting every dollar from Cole Anthony, right? So yeah, I think it's the right move. I think that it makes sense for Memphis. It sucks to lose out on a guy that you clearly plucked and identified and figured out when, God, you and I have been on this show for years. like even before you were on the show, I was talking for years about how Jay Huff is an NBA player. You know what I mean? Like he was one of the best players in the G League for 2 years consecutively and was very clearly an NBA player. But he's not so good that stars matter in the NBA. You don't, keep Jay Huff if it makes your life harder to retain your stars at the end of the day.
Yep, for sure.
So, makes sense to me. Like it makes sense across the board. And I like the move for the Pacers. I think it's a really, really sharp move. And he fits their scheme perfectly as a spacing big who can just space to the corners or can pick and pop. Like he is capable of doing both.
Yep.
Okay. Final newsy kind of thing that has happened here. Mike Brown has gone to the New York Knicks to be their head coach. He has officially been the hire. He has been rumored within this thing with Taylor Jenkins and then, from the jump here. And then after, things happened, let's go with, I don't have the details on it. It felt like they brought in some more names with Micah Nori and James Borrego and, whoever else they decided to talk to. They seemingly had a conversation with Don Staley at the very least. I understand the Mike Brown hire. It is like, it's somewhat concerning to me. I think the reason I'm like a little bit ambivalent about this in a way, whereas like GMAC obviously is so, excited about the Knicks having a head coach now because they haven't had a head coach for like a month, it feels like. And I'm like a little bit ambivalent, I think in part because of the process that was taken here, not in regard to like firing Tibbs seemingly without a plan. It's okay if you want to fire Tibbs and then go do a search, it's okay. But to do like the interviews at the top with him and Taylor Jenkins and then like bring in more people after, it makes me feel like you just like weren't super convinced. Maybe is that unfair?
No,
with like when Mike Brown, when he came in the first time and then you had to go out and like meet with other people and then like you hire Mike Brown. I'm just like a little bit confused on that piece of it, I guess.
This is another one of those, there's a few situations throughout, a season, an off season, whatever, where I'm like, I just would love to know what the process was, what the conversations were, right? Like be a fly on the wall. Was it, we're not sold on Mike Brown or Taylor Jenkins here. Like we kind of like Mike Brown, but you know what? Like, let's open this search up a little more. Or was it like, we love Mike Brown, but let's make sure we do our due diligence here. Like we feel like we have some time there. We don't, after the interviews, we don't feel like he's going to go somewhere else. We're upfront with him. Like, hey, we're going to go through all of this. Let's just make sure there's not somebody out there that's a touch better or a little bit better of a fit. Like that's what I would want to know. Was it like, yeah, we're cool with it, we'd really like to find somebody better? Or was like, no, we love Mike Brown, but let's do our due diligence on everybody just to make sure. And I think that's something on the outside. We just don't know exactly what the process is. And it also could just be like what you said at the top. Maybe they didn't like either one and that's why they kept going. But I do think all of those are realistic options. I don't know what's been reported and what hasn't.
Yeah, like I know that like in Knicks world, like a theory has been that they were trying to figure out what's going on with Jason Kidd, right? And if they could get Jason Kidd to be their head coach or trade for him in some respect, right? Like, okay, sure. That's fine to me too. Another piece of this is that I think Mike Brown's a fine coach. I think he's probably a battle league average coach that like doesn't really move the needle one direction or the other to me. It's not a bad hire. It's not a good hire. I have no real like strong opinions on it. And if I was the Knicks, like I almost would have gone for like, this is just me, I guess. I'm not the one who has to deal with it every day in the room. Like I'm on the outside and this is me on the outside saying this. I would have just probably gone for the variant swing of like a Micah Nori or somebody like that brings like a real like an offensive, mindset and things like that. Like, has dealt with not dealt with, that's unfair, but like his coached Karl Anthony Towns before and has been a significant part of instituting a defensive scheme that really worked with Karl Anthony Towns, with a smaller point guard as well. Look, I'm not sitting here saying that like Mike Inori versus Mike Brown is going to be the difference between like a title or not for the New York Knicks. I think I would have just gone for the higher variance play like a Mike Inori, or like you go bring in a Chris Quinn from Miami, or you go bring in, whoever you want to bring in, right, from an assistant staff across the league. I would rather take the variance swing, but like it's New York. And if you've never dealt with being a head coach before, New York can be an unforgiving place to have to be that head coach for the first time. Right. So I also understand being like, hey, like we need a guy who has experience dealing with all this bullshit. Like Mike Brown had the craziest experience ever with the Lakers. Like he's never gonna, he's seen everything he's gonna have to see, even in New York. Right. So I get that, but I don't know. Like I really liked Mike Brown's first year in Sacramento. I think it was his first year, if I remember correctly, where they had a bunch of wins. But as it went on in Sacramento, I didn't love the Mike Brown experience, honestly. Like continually, like the Keon Ellis thing is just like one example where we would lose our minds constantly. Like he's very clearly one of your best players. Play him, and like he'd just be out of the rotation for stretches, like over the last 2 years. It was very strange, but yeah.
I think that's where I'm at. Like there's nothing about this hire that gets me super excited other than just like, okay, it's something different than Tibbs and maybe a different voice, a different look, a different, something from the outside comes in and is able to, help it hit its ceiling, right? Like to me, that's the play. Like even more than the names involved, it was the previous coach seemingly they didn't feel like was going to be able to get them to their ceiling. And now the new coach coming in provides different ideas, different voice, different whatever that may allow that to happen with this group of players. And so, I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of names that would just get me super excited. Like the more I cover the NBA and watch games and stuff like that, I think there's a very select few names of coaches that I feel that way about. And I don't know that a whole lot of the ones that were being kicked around here would have made me feel any differently. It's more just like, hey, it's a different voice in the room. If Tibbs had lost I don't know, I don't want to say lost the locker room, but maybe his voice had gotten tired. Bringing in somebody with a new voice, Mike Brown has, he's been coach of the year. He's won at a very high level as an assistant coach, like all of those things. You mentioned a very important part of deciding on the New York's head coaching position, right? You have to be able to handle the media. Like that's not something you can just fluff off. And so it seems like a guy that can do that. So it's fine. I'm not over the moon about it. I think I land in the same places as you where it's like, okay, cool. Let's see what this looks like when he's making rotation decisions. Let's see if he still starts the same five that the Knicks fan base hated all season long with Tibbs, or if he can figure out and unlock the offense to be the best in the NBA like Knicks fans think they should be. I feel like I'll judge it more whenever we see it play out on the court than having strong opinions on it right now.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I'm kind of at the point where I think that there is like a pretty real difference in some places between head coach and not like who they have. Right. Sure. Like I think that the really good head coaches do swing things for a team.
I agree.
Like Spo really swings things for the Miami Heat. I think Ty Lue is like awesome. Rick Carlisle's unbelievable. Obviously. I think that Mark Daigneault and Joe Mazzulla, like, basically playing math ball in some places, Daigneault defensively, Mazzulla offensively, right? Like they are excellent at scheming and figuring out things going into games, even if they aren't necessarily like incredible with adjustments in games, right? But like those guys really swing the needle for me.
Is Ime a guy that would swing it a little bit?
I think Ime is a really good coach for sure, right? Like I would rather go and try and find the next, Mark Daigneault. Yeah. Or, like I think Chris Finch is really good too, by the way. Like that's another guy that I really like. So yeah, like Steve Kerr, I think continues to. It's like Kerr keeps it simple, but like does a really good job, I think. So I don't know. Like I then I look at like Chauncey Billups and some of the other guys like Doc Rivers and the players that you and I, or the coaches, I'm sorry, that you and I tend to have some questions about, right? Like I would rather go find the next Jordy Fernandez, honestly. Like Jordy Fernandez, I think did a really good job at the Brooklyn Nets this year, and like did a great job cultivating a scheme that really makes sense and put those guys in positive offensive positions consistently. Like I don't know, like that's a little bit more interesting. I liked what I saw from Jordy Fernandez more this past year than I liked what I saw from Mike Brown, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes I don't have those names in terms of like the assistant coaches or whatever, but I would understand. I understand what you're saying in terms of that variance of going and trying to find that assistant coach or associate, whatever their role is, their title is, knowing that there's a chance it flops. Like I assume it's probably not going to flop with Mike Brown, but like they're also so talented, it shouldn't flop. So I don't know. I could see that as well, in terms of, if you're going to move on from Thibs, then go high upside, right? Like go with the guy that you truly, and maybe they do, maybe they just truly do think Mike Brown is the missing voice. Maybe they think his voice will be different enough or whatever to take them to the next spot.
Yeah. And look, like he might just be fine. Again, I think he's probably like a league average head coach. Yeah. So like that might be enough. That might be what they need with the change of voice. You know what I mean? So
sure.
We shall see. Okay. The last thing I want to do here today, I just kind of want to reset where we're at with NBA free agency and who's still out there on the market, right?
Yep.
I think we probably start with the restricted free agents because they're the biggest names. So Josh Giddey, Jonathan Kuminga, Quentin Grimes. I mean, I guess Cam Thomas is one. Isaiah Jackson would be another one. I mean, some of the other like random two ways who I believe got like qualified. I believe Brandon Carlson got qualified. I believe Sheboy got qualified. I mean, just like kind of looking around, any other like bigger names that we might have interest in. Not really. I mean, I think Riley Minix is kind of interesting, but that's like really digging into the weeds. Drew Smith is another name that I think is probably like a rotation player if he gets healthy. But the big ones here, Josh Giddey and Jonathan Kuminga, that we want to talk about. It seems like they're both looking for deals in excess of $25 million a year, but there's no money on the market. Teams would have to come up with creative sign and trade situations. I'm certainly intrigued to see where the money is coming from. My guess is that Kuminga would probably have just like a bit more interest maybe from a wider swath of teams on the market. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, maybe. Huh. Because I think both of their roles are limited, like is my issue with both players. Both are talented players. We've seen Giddey put up huge numbers, but I think Giddey's is limited to non-contending teams that just need a primary guy. My issue with Kuminga is you have to find a team that believes he's actually the number 3 option, right? If you're going to pay him like a number 3 option. And how many teams have that role available and then believe that Jonathan Kuminga is the guy that can do that for them and then are willing to give up and match what it takes to, execute the sign-in trade. I mean, I guess what I'm talking myself into is I don't know that I love the market for either player in regards to that. I think both of them would have limited places to go.
Well, Sacramento has been rumored for Kuminga. And like the rumor is like baffling to me a little bit. Like they were like, I saw some reports from the Sacramento media folks that like Devin Carter and like a 2nd round pick or maybe like multiple 2nd round picks or something was the offer. I'm kind of just taking that if I'm Golden State, I think. Like I really like Devin Carter though. I think he's going to be a really good basketball player. He kind of fits exactly the kind of player that they love, super high energy, super high effort. They literally just tried to sign D'Anthony Melton last year because they thought that they needed somebody like this. I think that Devin Carter is probably going to be a better version of that, frankly, like by the time he comes to his ceiling, as long as the jump shot like continues to develop in the way it was prior to his shoulder injury. So I don't know, man. Like, I'd be kind of excited about Devin Carter, but maybe they're not. Maybe they just had a different eval.
Yeah, I'm interested with how both of these teams are playing it, because I went into the offseason assuming Chicago wanted to keep Josh Giddey, considering you traded Alex Caruso for him. And I assumed Golden State was just ready to get out of the Jonathan Kuminga business. Like, they were just ready to move him. Like, I honestly thought that would be one of the first dominoes to fall after the big names. And so I'm relatively surprised by both of these in terms of, it's almost like Golden State, either there's no market out there or they overvalued what they thought Jonathan Kuminga could return on the market, which seems like a miscalculation, because I think based on what he's done, how you've treated him, and the contract he wants, I don't know what you thought you were going to get for Jonathan Kuminga. And then I'm like, is Chicago actually playing this right with Josh Giddey in terms of trying to get him on a lower number if they do want to keep him around? Like, are they actually going to end up signing him in the next week or so and being like, actually, we're going to look at it and be like, actually, that number's not too bad. That's actually decent for Josh Giddey. So I thought Kuminga would be moved by now, Sam, and I thought Josh Giddey would be re-signed or extended. I shouldn't say re-signed. Would already have been extended in Chicago.
I also thought Giddey would be extended in Chicago. I kind of thought that they would just do this. I actually respect a little bit that they didn't.
Yeah.
Make him go back and forth a little bit. I do think they're still going to have to give him 25 at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, but if I'm Josh Giddey's representation, I'm looking at, again, like we love Jalen Suggs. I think Jalen Suggs is a better player than Josh Giddey pretty substantially. Josh Giddey averaged 15, 8, and 7 this year, shooting 47, 38, 78. That's better numbers than anybody of the Jalen Suggs, Emmanuel Quickly group has done at this point in terms of the box score numbers, right? I think that you and I both have concerns about what that looks like in terms of the efficacy of winning when he is the guy that has the ball in his hands all the time. But I will say as well that he has continued to show the ability to play off the ball a little bit more than what we've seen previously. He took 4 threes a game and hit them at 38% this year. The release is very slow. It takes him a minute to kind of load into it. But once he does, he is starting to make those shots at a pretty solid level. So I don't know. I do think that the Quickly deal is probably an overpay at the end of the day. That's where it seems like this is heading. But that would probably be my comp if I'm the Giddey camp, and I would probably be holding firm in the same way that they are at 32 million.
I mean, the other thing is the leverage they have is, I mentioned earlier, you traded Alex Caruso for me. Alex Caruso, who just helped the Oklahoma City Thunder win NBA championship. That's who you gave up for me. This is going to be a really bad look if you let me walk to, but I think that's where the leverage.
Or if he takes the qualifying offer, it's another thing here.
Yeah. And that's what I wonder, at what point do we just end up with that? And he says, hey, next offseason, there's supposed to be teams with cap space, and I'll just be an unrestricted next year, and I'll hit the open market. Because I do think where Chicago has regained some control is, I thought Brooklyn was a team that might be interesting for Giddey, because it's just hey, bring him in. You don't have any true on-ball guys. But now that we're post-draft, that's no longer the case. You're going to bring in Giddey and pay him $30 million a year to play over the top of those 3 guys that you just drafted. So I don't love that one as much. And so I just wonder if both sides now all of a sudden feel like they have a little bit of leverage with the situation, and we're in a stalemate. I mean, obviously we are, because again, I thought this would happen fairly quickly in free agency. So I don't know. It is. These are 2 that are fascinating, because I didn't think that these were ones that would drag out. And we are talking about 2 talented players, even though they're flawed, Sam.
I did think the Kuminga one would drag out, for what it's worth.
Because
look, restricted free agency always drags out, because or like there's a chance it drags out because of the moratorium period, right? Like the moratorium just ended today, and you don't want to lock your cap space up for 6 days. You would rather lock it up for a day whenever you give out an offer sheet. But there's nobody who's going to give these guys an offer sheet right now is the thing. So
I thought he would have a trade market. Like, I just thought somebody would come in and like especially once KD landed and the Giannis stuff is whatever it is now. Like once those names came off the board, I thought a team would make a move on him, but I guess I said earlier too that I thought his options would be limited because you have to really buy into what he is as a player. We talk about fit all the time, right? Like he has to fit your style of play because he is a very specific type of player in terms of the ball will stick in his hands, even though he can really score it. The ball, like if you're a huge ball movement team, like Golden State and player movement, that's not where Jonathan Kuminga is going to fit in the best.
Yeah, no, let's kind of just, wrap this all in together, right? So we think that Giddey is going to sign in Chicago. Like that's where this ends.
I do.
To me.
Yep.
It's going to be Chicago. It's just, is it 25? Is it 27? Is it 30? Is it 32? Like I get that. Like I get that there's going to be like a real haggling period here between Josh Giddey's representation, which is Daniel Moldovan, and the Chicago Bulls, who are led by Arturas Karnisovas. It's going to be a real back and forth, I would imagine. The Kuminga one is more up in the air to me. Well, before we get there, I'm going to say Giddey ends up getting like 27. Okay. And the reality is that he can't turn that down. Like, I don't think Josh Giddey can turn down $25 to $27 million a year in the hopes of getting a bigger number down the road. Right.
Yep.
That feels crazy to me. In Kuminga's case, I actually don't know where this goes because like, I don't know how excited like Steve Kerr is about like having to run back the Jonathan Kuminga experience again after he just like didn't play him in the playoffs until they got injured and then was forced into it. Right.
Yep.
I don't know, man. Like you could sell me on a whole bunch of things here. You could genuinely sell me on a whole lot of ideas.
This is why I'm struggling with this one. So here's why I thought this would get done, Sam, is I didn't think Golden State valued him. And so I thought Golden State would look at how they handled him in the playoffs and just realize they kind of tanked his value in a sign-in trade when you also include what he wanted to get paid. Like you just told the whole league you don't trust him to play in the playoffs. So if you don't want him on your team, I think you have to understand that other teams are going to have questions in terms of what they send back to you. And so that's why I did think he would get moved, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I just don't know how you can bring him back. Like I say the way they treated him, like I'm not saying they treated him poorly, just in general, like how they have valued him in their rotation with minutes, stuff like that. I just don't see how you would do that, but I don't know. Again, what are the teams out there that want to make this move? I know Miami is a team that always gets brought up. Sacramento, like whatever. But like, is there a plethora of names that you can bring up where you're like, yeah, this is a team that should really make this move? I think that is difficult.
I think it's somewhat difficult too. I do think it's somewhat difficult to actually come up with a team that really tracks here, I guess, for Kuminga. Like Sacramento is interesting. I was trying to figure out like the way to do Sacramento to get them like a bigger wing with Keegan Murray, and Kuminga's like a real answer here. Look, I would guess that there's traction with Sacramento, if only because if they're willing to do Devin Carter, like they're probably willing to give up like a little bit more. Like if you're starting with Devin Carter on the table, and I guess we don't know for a fact that they're starting with Devin Carter on the table, but Devin Carter's name has been in rumors here for a minute. And it's very bizarre to me that Scott Perry seems to like not be valuing Carter, because like everything I know about Scott Perry is he loves those like super tough, like football player style, like basketball players basically. And for whatever reason, like he's just not really valuing this one, who is a lottery pick last year. I get it that they have a lot of guards, but like he's the one that you have cost control over for a little while. It's very strange to me. Yeah, if I was the Warriors and they offered me Devin Carter, I'd be haggling, back and forth and just figuring out a way to make this work. The thing is, though, that to do it, you probably have to find a landing spot for Malik Monk. And
this starting
it shouldn't be this hard to
amazing.
find a landing spot for Malik Monk. Malik Monk is good.
Listen, Sam, like we're not going down this path, because like if he was actually on the table for the team that I was reported on the table for and they didn't want him for some reason, I do not understand, which is the team behind me.
Like if you're the Kings, I guess here, your leverage is to just go to the Warriors and say, look, you're 100% right. We do want Jonathan Kuminga, but if you're not willing to do Devin Carter, Malik Monk, and something else, then we're just going to do a thing where we decide, oh no, we're just going to flip Malik Monk for Kyle Kuzma, and that'll be our answer, right? Because if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you do that in a heartbeat. First and foremost, like you
don't let Perry off the phone. You do not let you. That is not a hey, let's think about it. You just say yes and move on. I mean, the idea there is what, like Sacramento's getting off the money a little sooner, but
I mean, the idea is like they think that they kind of want to try and win now, and they need a guy in Kyle Kuzma's type of player,
sure,
right? Who's like a bigger wing, right? They actually do genuinely need a bigger wing.
Sure.
And they have had interest in him in the prior front office. And a lot of the people that still worked in that front office are still there, even though Monty McNair is not there. So I just don't,
whatever.
I don't know. I don't know. So someone said too, a lot of questions about Devin Carter handling himself off the court like a professional. That would baffle me, having done the intel on him pre-draft and having done any, I've met that kid. That kid is an unbelievable kid who works incredibly hard. Another dude where I talked about Trey Johnson's workouts, in terms of it being one of the most impressive workouts I saw. Devin Carter's is a crazy, he is a crazy work ethic guy. It would be baffling to me if he wasn't anything but a 100% professional. That would be crazy to me. So, and all of the intel on him was extremely positive going back as well. So
I'm just laughing at a starting lineup of Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Jonathan Kuminga, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis. That's just incredible.
I mean, Keegan Murray's never going to shoot again. He's just literally never going to shoot again.
I love Keegan Murray. He right now, Keegan Murray is my guy that has still been awesome in the league, but I want to be in a different role on a new team. I don't want to take Keegan Murray from the Kings, but I'm just I think Keegan Murray is such a good two-way player if he was put in the right role.
Here's the issue. If you're Keegan Murray and his representation and you see how this roster is shaping up, are you sure that you want to be there? And obviously he'll be a restricted free agent next summer. They can match whatever they want, but are you excited about not shooting?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And having to do, you're the only positive defender in that lineup. Zach is neutral some possessions. You're the only outwardly positive defender in that starting lineup because they refuse to start Keon Ellis.
Yeah. Agree. So no, it's a baffling situation. I think the Kings do make the most sense though. If you made me kind of say, I think the Kings make the most sense
Go ahead.
For Kuminga. For Quentin Grimes, this is another thing, by the way, that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Quentin Grimes, it feels is just in a funky spot. Someone reported he wants 25 a year or something. I mean, that's just not happening. I can just tell you on this market, that's not happening. And there have been rumors going back that Quentin Grimes feels like he is, wants more money than maybe what the reality is. So maybe it's his representation leaking what they think is strategically, but not actually strategically. I don't know. Like to me, the number we said at the jump was like 16, like just a little bit more than the mid level. Start him at 16, go up to 20, and it's like a 470 or whatever. Like 470, 475 feels right for him.
Yeah, I mean, this is going back 18 months for me now. Whenever like that was actually one of the moves I didn't love that Trajan did with Quentin Grimes. I guess it wouldn't be 18 months, then it'd be 12 months. But I said when that trade happened from Detroit to Dallas that Grimes better be asking for an outlandish number for all of these teams to be moving off of him. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe the read was just like, hey, we don't want to be the team that has to get into this situation with Quentin Grimes, that either through conversations or whatever, that, front offices could just tell that he was going to ask for a number that was about, like, Quentin Grimes has been good. Like, I don't want this to come off negative towards Quentin Grimes. I think he's a real two-way player. He's shown his value. The numbers were skewed down the stretch for Philly. Like, I know people like want to throw those out sometimes. Like, that's not his role in this league, but a real two-way player that has real value. But like, maybe it's finally playing out now in terms of like what he's asking and it being higher than what teams were ever going to be comfortable giving him. And so we'll see, like, maybe he eventually just maybe bets on himself then, right? Like
it would be baffling. It'd be so baffling for him to pass up $75 million or whatever to me.
Yeah. I agree.
Like that feels crazy. That feels completely crazy to me.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a shorter term deal. Like maybe that's
sure.
maybe that's what they're fighting for. Maybe it's like, okay, we will do 3 years with a team option or with a player option. We prefer that structure where we're locking in 32 million or whatever, 34 million, 35, whatever it is, but we want to be able to get out after 2 years. Like maybe that's the negotiation. Like it doesn't have to be that, it's 4 for 100 or it's 4 for 75 and that's it. Like it could be somewhere in the, somewhere in the middle here.
Yep. Sure.
But look, I think it's got to be Quentin Grimes back to the Philly. Like that's where this ends to me for sure. Because they just have to match whatever it is, in my opinion.
Yep.
The final one is Cam Thomas. I have no idea.
I mean, we said this from whenever we did their offseason preview.
Nets offseason preview, we said like this could go any direction. Yeah, I have no idea.
We thought maybe a short deal with maybe higher than people would expect AAV made sense. Definitely not a long-term deal at that number. But who knows? Like, who knows where they're at with it now?
I just don't even know. Like I have no idea, to be honest. Like again, I don't know who's going to be like wildly enthused about Cam Thomas because like it feels like he wants to come in and like take a bunch of shots, right? I think that Jake Fisher said like there is not a market for Cam Thomas right now, just like straight up on one of his streams. Look, again, I think it's probably a short-term deal. If you made me guess, like get him paid. He was a late first-round pick, so he really has not gotten like a ton of money yet. Same with Grimes too. Like, make sure you get him like 3 for 45 or something with maybe a player option or something. But that's where this goes. I think probably a shorter-term deal.
Yeah.
But if I'm Brooklyn, here's my question to you, Bryce. Do you want Cam Thomas on the longer term deal?
No.
Like if it's 20, like do you want that?
I don't necessarily feel comfortable giving him a long term. I mean, I guess there's a number where I feel good about it because then I feel like I could trade it. But I think shorter term deal all around makes sense to me. And it is worth noting to me, like they really upped their financial commitment in the Porter Jr. trade. And so like you do have Porter Jr. on the books for essentially $40 million the next 2 years. And so, and that's on top of Claxton for $25 million this year and Terrence Mann around 15 for the next 3 years. And then the rest is all rookie deals and all of that, but maybe they're not super excited about adding another $20 to $25 million for the next couple of years, even when you've already committed some of that to, like I said, Porter Jr. So I don't know. I have no idea how to value him and how the league's going to value. And like you said, like if there's no market, then Brooklyn holds the cards here.
I think that it's like 352, 350, something like that. Maybe a player option. Like that's what tracks the best to me, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Unrestricted free agents that are currently available. Al Horford is the top name to me.
Yeah.
It seems like there's some steam that he's going to end up at Golden State. Like that doesn't come from intel. That comes from like, it just feels like that's where this is going. And because Kuminga's cap hold is as large as it is, they can't give him their mid-level until Kuminga's situation is finalized. I think that this probably just ends with them figuring out the Kuminga situation and then just bringing in Al Horford. That's my read on this.
Love it. I would love that for Horford for the Warriors. That's a great combination if he's not going back to Boston.
And this is a team that really needs a big, in my opinion. Like it's a perfect fit schematically. It's a perfect fit situationally. Like I love it across the board. I have no notes, like 10 out of 10. If that happens, we will talk about it and we will be big fans.
I mean, this is a team that, I mean, obviously Draymond plays at the 5, but they played Kevon Looney 1,000 minutes, no longer there. Trace Jackson Davis, almost 1,000 minutes. Quentin Post, 700 minutes. At least adding Al Horford to that trio makes me feel better about their situation at center.
Yep. Completely agree. Chris Paul would probably be the next thing. There have been I think he spoke today and said like this is probably his last year is what it feels like. And B, there have been reports that he wants to stay closer to the West Coast to be closer to his family. I mean, you're looking in that case probably with the 2 LA teams with Phoenix. That feels like the trio if he's really that certain about wanting to do that. Right? Like the team that could use him the most is probably Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
But like it doesn't feel like that's going to be the reality. Like it feels like he probably wants, we brought up if he could go to Denver, that would be incredible. But Denver, as you know, is much farther from LA than what I think people think. And it might not make sense, but we'll see. It depends. It depends on what CP3 wants. He's at the stage of his career where he's probably taking a minimum to play exactly where he wants to go. And he has made so much money. And, does he want to maximize title? Does he want to try and be a player that is kind of close to home a little bit? He's made $400 million in his career. So it's just wherever he wants to go.
And I think he makes sense for those teams. I love him with the Clippers, Sam. Like this Clippers team is one I really kind of enjoyed throughout the season last year, kind of fell into with Chris Dunn and the emergence of Zubac in terms of just like getting better. I didn't get a chance to talk about this. You guys did, but I love the addition of Brook Lopez to that roster. They still have the wing depth, even if it's not like the high end outside of Kawhi. We'll see kind of what year Norman Powell has, but adding the backup guy and Chris Paul at the point guard position, I love that. I think that would be incredible for the Clippers there. I think that tracks even more for me than the Lakers in terms of some of the ball handling the Lakers already have. And like, I mean, obviously Phoenix could use a point guard. Like that's, I like the Clippers roster in general more than I like the Suns roster. So
other unrestricted free agents here. Should we mention Beal before we move on to these other guys?
I mean, what's actually going on? Like, I feel like I saw something right before the movie started or right after. Like, is there actual traction? I feel like I see people throwing out numbers and then I can't tell if it's actually reporting or people are just saying this is what it would take.
So according to Mark Stein, Bradley Beal's actively exploring his options with other teams in anticipation of a buyout with the Suns, right? Okay. So if that's the case, it feels like Bradley Beal's hitting the market. And I mean, any number of teams, right? And if you're Bradley Beal, I mean, what are you giving back? Like I think you have to give back 10 or so in order to actually do the buyout.
To wait, yeah, because who do they have? Nas Little, is that who it is that's on the books already or something? Who? It's the 15% of the cap or whatever it is. He he literally has to give money back, or they can't legally do it. They can't stretch him.
They can't stretch him. They can buy him out at any point.
Correct.
But they can't stretch him.
Yeah.
Unless he takes back, like, I think it's like 10 to 15 or so $1 million, right? Like it's in that ballpark. I don't know the exact number that he has to give back. But I don't know, man. Like, if I'm Bradley Beal, I've probably played this perfectly because I'm going to get a significant portion of this contract and I'm going to get to pick my destination and my landing spot. B, I mean, Miami has long been rumored. Like, that's just always been a spot that could end up being this. The Clippers make an immense amount of sense for Bradley Beal. Go get another scorer in the same way that Chris Paul makes a ton of sense for the Clippers, right? They don't have a crazy amount. I will note that, like, because they gave out a lot of money to Brook Lopez from their mid-level exception, I think they have like $5 million or so that they can give to Bradley Beal, which might be fine. Like, that might be enough for him, given that he's going to be making at least 50 million, 45 million, whatever it is, over the course of the next 2 years. But like, both Miami and the Clippers are the two spots that make the most sense. Denver obviously would be amazing. It's just like they have a minimum.
Yeah.
It really just depends on what Beal wants, I think.
I just always like to make note of this. Even if you take the last 2 seasons, both seasons in Phoenix, he averaged 17.5, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, half a block on 51, 41, 81. And so, like, yes. I always like to bring that. Now, it was only in 100 games, 106, so 53 average between the 2 years. So obviously didn't play all the games, all of that. I just don't want that to get lost in the fact that, yes, he is way overpaid for that production. But if that production is on some portion of the tax MLE, or like, of course, if it was on a vet min somehow, like, I can't imagine that's what going to end up where we're at, but I don't know. Maybe he just wants to go play somewhere. That is real production. Like, that all of a sudden becomes extremely positive production, even if he only plays 50 or 60 games in the regular season and then can be healthy for the postseason. So this is not a player that sucks. It's just a player that was overpaid with with the no trade clause and was redundant for a Phoenix Suns team. So this will be impactful for wherever he ends up, in my opinion.
I think he has a chance to swing the title picture if he picks the right spot. If he just picks Miami, then Miami doesn't have enough. You know what I mean? And it's what it is. But if he picks the Clippers, and then you're looking at a team with Bradley Beal, Kawhi, Ivica Zubac, all the guys that they have on
Harden,
that team.
Powell, Derrick Jones Jr., Chris Dunn, Lopez. That's a lot of depth all of a sudden, Sam.
Yeah, and if they get Beal, does that allow them to move Norman Powell and cash in on him as an asset now?
Yeah.
Right?
On an expiring, I assume Norm Powell would have a decent market.
All of the reporting from Fred Katz over the years has been that, he wants to stay in he likes warm weather, Bradley Beal. It feels like his family is actually quite settled in Phoenix as well, which is part of the reason he didn't want to waive the no trade clause to go north this year. Right. I mean, what if the family stayed in Phoenix and he goes to LA in some way? What if he goes to the Lakers? That'd be a fun team.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
There are real options here. There are options where he swings things in a big way if he wants to.
Yeah. I mean, you think about just, again, those numbers, probably coming off your bench. Like you said, I don't think Denver's going to be viable, but what if he did just hey, I want to go play with Nikola Jokic because he's a lot of fun to play with. And we already talked about their depth. You add that into their rotation. Again, he is still a quality NBA basketball player, scoring at a very, that's the thing. It's not getting buckets in an inefficient way at this point. It's a very efficient way of scoring in his minutes. And I didn't know that we would get here. Now that it looks like we are, he probably is the most interesting name on the market. Like, to me, that's more interesting than all the restricted free agents we just talked about, Sam.
Oh,
is
totally. Yeah. Because he has the freedom to go where he wants to
choose
go.
wherever he wants to go, for sure.
Yeah. Like if I'm Beal, I've made 400. Like,
I'm going to
by
win
the
a
end of
title.
this process,
Yeah.
like if Bradley Beal goes and like starts for the Denver Nuggets and leads them, or doesn't lead them obviously to a title, but if he's the third best player on a title team, whatever you think of Bradley Beal, like, you know, you can't tell him shit at that point. If he takes a minimum and goes and helps Denver win a title, or if he goes and helps the Clippers win a title, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has played this quite well, I think. It's no surprise, like Mark Bartelstein's his representation, like Bartelstein does a great job of kind of managing these situations. Obviously has an incredible reputation for getting his guys paid. Like, this has been handled very well, in my opinion, because Beal is now going to be able to choose his destination while still having made over $400 million, even if he gives back like 15 million over the course of his career. This is a huge win for Beal. And look, it just depends on what Beal wants. Like that's what this is now. Does Bradley Beal want to go and get shots in Miami, or does he want to, like, what if he chose like San Antonio or something?
That was so I was thinking about the Texas teams. Like what would Dallas be interesting to him?
Maybe. Like what if he chose Minnesota? Like, you know, again, like, doesn't feel like cold weather is something he's excited about, but like, what if he's like, shit, like, I'll go to Minnesota for a year and help Ant?
Think about his role in Dallas, Sam. Like, for the first how many ever months of the season.
Yeah.
And they have the back line to insulate him defensively. And like, I think those guys are good enough that even when Kyrie comes back, because I think Kyrie really competes defensively, like, that would be interesting to me, even when Kyrie's back. But until Kyrie's there, like, you talk about getting shots up and being on a good team.
Yeah, 100%. Like, this, again, I thought Bradley Beal, like, actually this year as well, I will say this, like, he wasn't a great defender this year. I don't want to pretend.
Yeah.
Right. But they did give him tough assignments, especially like in the first third of the season. And I thought that he worked on defense. Like, I will say that, like, they had real lineup deficiencies with him and Tyus Jones and Devin Booker, like, not being great at defending up the lineup.
And no center behind them.
No center behind them. Right. But I do think that the defensive metrics, like the on-off numbers, probably do a disservice to how much Beal at least like really gave effort on that end early in the season this year, and was somebody that like tried. Like, he all he has to do is like really try on that end and just make it so that he's feeding guys into help, so that when he's in a competent situation, it looks okay. Because he can really score. We know that he can score, is the reality. If he found the right spot, he could easily be a 20-point per game guy again. But
and some of these teams we were talking about have that infrastructure. Minnesota, if he was willing to be cold. LA, like, dude, just guard the fifth best player on the floor, because everybody else on the floor other than Harden, I guess, when you're playing together, can guard, and you have these huge bigs behind you to do it. Same thing with Dallas. San Antonio would be interesting. Like, I don't know that as much shifts the title, race, but just in terms of them being better or even more, obviously. So, and I'm with you. Like, I didn't mean to speak on him like he was like Trae Young or, something like that defensively.
No, we know.
But, yeah, you kind of have me like, this conversation has me excited for this to actually happen and then see where he ends up. So,
okay. Let's see here. I mean, like, best big free agent outside of Al Horford for me is Chris Boucher, probably.
Boucher's interesting. Like, so this is a realm where, like, I have these conversations every day, because this is a spot that Detroit still could look to fill. So Boucher, Trey Lyles are the two names that come up a lot in these conversations. You had brought up who ended up on a two-way.
Jabari Walker. That is insane.
Yeah.
That is crazy that he is on a two-way.
No,
he is a real like NBA player, and he is on a two-way right now.
No, what's funny is for a NBA like borderline role, like whatever we want to call him, I've never seen my timeline light up with quote tweets about a player. How ridiculous it was that he ended up on a two-way than it happened with Jabari Walker. So yeah, I feel like those two are the best names here, like Precious, I guess.
Like there's a chance Jabari Walker is a two-way who might not be playing summer league.
Yeah.
Like, that might be the reality of where this goes. I don't know if he's going to play summer league or not, like when they get to Vegas, but yeah, that's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy to me.
Yep.
I'm trying to think I'm looking at like other free agents here that are available. I mean, Bagley's available. I mean, Malik Beasley, I'd imagine the league is just trying to see what's happening there with his investigation into his gambling situation.
I think Amir
Precious
Coffey's...
Achua is another one. Amir Coffey. Yeah. Give me the Amir Coffey take here.
No, like I think he just saw it. Like I liked his minutes last year. Can get out, he defends, got to knock down shots with Coffey. Last 2 seasons have been really, really good from the 3-point line. 38% 2 years ago, 41% last year. I just think he's a nice like wing rotation piece. He's at 38% for his career on not crazy volume. But it was 3.5 last year in 24 minutes. I mean, he played 72 games in 24 minutes a game for that Clippers team that I thought was pretty good all year long. So he gives you a little bit of juice off the bench, kind of as a wing. So I think that would be an interesting addition for a team that maybe has a spot, for 15 to 18 minutes a night in the regular season.
Malcolm Brogdon and Russell Westbrook, 2 other names here, just worth bringing up. I mean, again, like Russ was a useful player for the Denver Nuggets last year for pretty long stretches. I don't really have a strong take beyond that. Like, I don't know where to go with him. Do you have a strong opinion on where he could make sense?
So Denver, but then I'm trying to decide if he makes sense still for Denver when you add in, their additions. Like, do you need him with Bruce Brown there now? I wonder if other teams are going like, we don't have Nikola Jokic for him to play off of. So do we make as much sense for him? Does he make as much sense in our rotation as he did for the Nuggets? So that one will be really interesting. Some other like veteran point guard names, Corey Joseph. I think like at this point, like a third point guard for a team. DeLon Wright, Monte Morris, Delano Banton, I think is an interesting name. Jared Butler is one that has gotten brought up to me again. If Detroit is looking for a point guard. So I think he's another one that I'm interested to see where he ends up going by the time the offseason's over.
Yeah, I think so too. Trying to see if there's anybody else here that I wanted to bring up. I mean, DeAnthony Melton is another name, but he's coming off the injury, obviously. Precious is a name for sure. Like these guys will be on NBA teams, but yeah.
I like Trey Lyles, Sam. Like I think Trey Lyles is going to be an interesting, like he's not a starter. He's not going to come in and but he's had to play a little bit of small ball 5 over the last handful of seasons. He did it in Detroit. I think he's done with Sacramento a little bit. He can space the floor a little bit. Like the percentages aren't quite where you want, but just like a rotation forward. He's a name that I don't mind. So,
and I mean, if we want to dig like really deep here into the weeds, I mean, like Caleb Houston, I believe is available.
Yep.
Like that was kind of a strange one. Delano Banton, Charles Bassey, maybe another name. Fultz is out there. I do think Jared Butler's an NBA player. I'm glad you brought up Jared Butler.
Is Ryan Rollins still?
Ryan Rollins is actually the name here. Worth kind of focusing on a bit. I thought Ryan Rollins was really good.
I thought they like really thrust him into that role in Milwaukee, and I'm like, man, he's kind of like holding his own here, doing okay. So I'm a little surprised that he's still out there, I guess.
Yeah, like I would love to bring him back if I'm Milwaukee.
Right?
I thought Ryan Rollins was quite good for like that stretch down the stretch, I guess, of the season.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with
Like,
you.
he defended his balls off, like knocked down shots from three. He seems like the kind of guy where if they're trying to, win a title, which we can talk about the efficacy of that, obviously, but like if they're trying to contend at the highest level they can with Giannis, Ryan Rollins would be useful for them, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That one's a little interesting to me.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay. I think that's all that I've got here outside of 2 super chats.
Nice.
So from Shibugan, if DeAndre Ayton wanted to coast, he could have gone to the Pacers on a gap year for more money. He shares an agent with Luka and is in a prove it year. He'll be fine. I do just want to call out a little bit. I've seen the like he shares an agent with Luka thing. It's like a little bit different than just that. So like Bill Duffy, like definitely, I think like co-reps him, but I believe that like his primary agent is Neiman Namakian, who left WME, like still has a close partnership with like WME with some clients like DeAndre Ayton for sure. But it's not as simple as like it's the same agency doing the same deals. Like it's just like slightly askew. And again, like I don't want to say there's like any problems between the two agencies where Neiman Amakian left to go like do his own thing, which is completely reasonable and justified and sharp on his end. But he co-represents some of these guys still with Bill Duffy, and Bill is with WME obviously, and is one of the most powerful agents in the business. But like I don't think Bill Duffy's like DeAndre's like primary agent either.
Yeah, I will also just say, like, I felt like we laid out that we think that this could be a great spot and is a great spot to do exactly what we're talking about here. I'm pretty comfortable not talking in absolutes that it's absolutely going to happen, though. Like, I'm pretty comfortable with that with DeAndre Ayton. And like, I agree that I think we're going to see the best version of him, but I'm cool laying out the other side of it as a possibility as well.
Yep. And the other one is from Daniel Garrett. Who else do you think is a young player for a tanking team to take a gamble on that's limited minutes wise because he plays for a contender? That is a great
That's
question.
An awesome question.
That is a fantastic, fantastic question. Yeah, I mean, you kind of look at the teams that have depth more than anything, right? Like teams that just don't have a lot of minutes for guys. It is like kind of hard to point them out. Like we talk about Batadze, but Batadze's like 26 at this point, right? Like he's not necessarily a guy that tracks for this.
Could Tyson be a guy that ends up being this by like the deadline this season? Jalen Tyson with the Cavs. I like Jalen Tyson quite a bit. They kept Merrill. They brought in Lonzo Ball. They have Strus. They still have Hunter. Like, is there a chance he's still not in the rotation and could end up in this?
Maybe. And look, like the guy we've talked about throughout is Devin Carter. Like if they're just willing to move Devin Carter, I'm buying the Devin Carter stock. Like if someone wants to sell me the Devin Carter stock, I'll take it. Like I'm happy to have it at the end of the day. He dealt with a shoulder injury to start the year last year, and I loved that dude at Providence. Like that is, but he's extremely my kind of guy. So if I miss, I tend to miss on these guys. I will name one more name, and I know that he just played his first summer league game.
No. If you say this, I had a name here. I think we're going to say the same person.
Nikola Topic?
Yes, because I'm like, if AJ Mitchell is as good as what he looked like.
That's my thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, so I think Topic is really good. Don't get me wrong, but I think AJ Mitchell is a monster. Like, I think that dude, I had a first round grade on AJ Mitchell, and he's way better even than what I thought. Yeah. I mean, this isn't even a reaction to yesterday.
Correct.
This is a reaction to what we saw the entirety of the season this year.
That's right.
Prior to his injury. So, yeah, to me, like AJ Mitchell is really good. And I wonder if Topic ends up, being a potential move piece for them at some point to target.
that was my thought as well. And again, because I had the tweet where it's like, hey, we're all gonna agree not to overreact and pull receipts off of Summer League, right? And it was like AJ just looked like a guy that was too good for Summer League. And those things happen. I think we can all agree on that. But this for me as well, it doesn't even come from Topic's performance either. It's just like, I think AJ Mitchell is good, has proven that, is on a stupid deal for the next 3 years. And so it's just like, if they get into this and he is truly able to handle that load, like, can you just still get a heck of a return for Topic? And so like, that was a name that jumped out to me also. And it's also just a team that's going to have to do this. We just saw them just dump a first round pick after 1 year because they had to open up the roster spot. So if they can do it sooner with Topic and get some real value, because they had to give value in that one, if they can get value in this one, that makes sense. I
mean, the other guy that we've brought up previously is Yves Missy, just because new front office, they've brought in a center already in Derek Queen. They just signed another center in Kevon Looney. Like, that feels complicated to me for Yves Missy there now. And if we look up in, December and he's not in the rotation because Willie Green wants like the veteran presence of Kevon Looney, and, the front office is like, Derek Queen, we just paid what might be the number 3 overall pick for Derek Queen. We need to maybe play him a little bit. It's like it's not an outcome that's out of the cards to me.
Yeah. I was looking through some of these other West contenders. Wasn't anybody on the Nuggets or the Clippers that really stood out? Maybe on the Warriors that,
I mean, not really.
Those guys are going to play
Yeah, I mean, like Kobe Buffkin has just dealt with injuries a lot.
Sure.
Like he might.
That's a good name.
The problem is that he's like expensive now. Like he's going to make like over $5 million a year, I think, this year. So it's a little bit trickier to just like kind of take those guys on and then give them their number. He's at 4.5 this year and then 7 the next year. So
I'll give you another name. I would, if I was a team, I would give a chance to Omax in Dallas. I don't know where his role is now with all of that front line and the addition of Cooper Flagg. I was a big Omax guy in that class. This isn't like a star power Cam Whitmore type of move, but like I would give up, a second round pick or something to go get Omax if I was a team.
It's not a bad shout. I think that's one that makes sense. And then Minnesota, I mean, they just have these guys on the roster. Leonard Miller is on this roster, right? We'll see what ends up happening with some of their other slots, but I have, Leonard Miller is not going to cost really anything to acquire, I would imagine. I think Jalen Clark's going to play for them. So I don't think Jalen Clark is the name here. I think that they would not, I would guess they would not move Jalen Clark in all honesty, but maybe Leonard Miller might be a name that they would look at.
The only thing I thought was like, if there was an odd man out between Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr., right? Like if one of those guys is obviously the quote unquote winner of those minutes and the replacement, and they feel like the other's expendable. I think if I'm Minnesota, I'm just keeping all of those guys for this season though.
Well, and here's the last team I'll bring up, just Toronto on the wing, right?
Yeah.
You have your starting lineup in Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, Emmanuel Quickley, Jakob Poeltl, and whatever you do with Barrett, Ochai Agbaji, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, right? Is there any chance that like one of the Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Ochai Agbaji?
Sure.
In my guess would be Agbaji because he's about to get a little bit more expensive here because he's extension eligible.
Yeah.
Like, is there a chance that one of those guys comes loose? Because I would really like Agbaji if I was a team.
Yeah. No,
if I'm Toronto and I don't want to pay him because I just gave Poeltl this extension and I just gave Brandon Ingram an extension and just gave Scotty Barnes an extension and Quickly's on $32 million a year. Agbaji is a name that I would pretty strongly look at as well if I was on the trade market right now looking for a wing.
Awesome question, Daniel. That one was fun. Very well done.
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a very, very good question. That might be a whole podcast at some point, to be honest. Like the guys like who need fresh starts, don't need fresh starts, but like maybe could use fresh starts somewhere else.
Yep.
Okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yep.
And let's just kind of finish this thing up.
Yeah, so at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack, completely free over there if you want to go check some stuff out. Sam mentioned at the top, we will be there at Summer League. I'll be there Wednesday night, so in Vegas, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday. If you see us walking around, like, say hello. I know for me, especially, like, I really appreciate that. I love it whenever people say what's up, and we can chat it up a little bit about your favorite team. So make sure you do that. And then the Pistons Pulse podcast, we'll have friend of the Game Theory podcast, Jason Timpf, is making his first appearance over on the Pistons Pulse on Tuesday afternoon to talk about the Pistons offseason. Otherwise, keep it locked here. Game Theory podcast continues to grow strong. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, help us continue to grow.
It is so great that you guys have pushed us up over 55,000 subscribers over on YouTube. It's just a crazy number. Crazy number. We are so immensely appreciative of everything that you guys do for us. We love you guys. Thank you for coming to hang out with us. You know, we had over 1,000 people watching this, you know, when nothing has happened in free agency over the last 3 days.
I looked at the number at one point, Sam, like, man, I was like, oh my gosh, like, we still have quite the crew here tonight. This is amazing.
Crazy stuff. So thank you all for coming to hang out and listen. We will be back in a couple of days. We'll probably do some U19 stuff, would be my guess. My guess is that a couple of things will break loose now a little bit now that the moratorium has ended. So there will be some free agency stuff, but we'll definitely talk U19s a little bit, and maybe some of the early summer league action. I don't love to dig deep into summer league if I don't have to. Sure. But VJ did some fun things yesterday. I thought Filipowski did some fun things yesterday. AJ Mitchell was good yesterday. So, like, you know, all of that stuff is they're things worth at least bringing up and discussing at some point. So I'll be in Vegas on Tuesday, I guess, and we'll kind of try and schedule it out. I land, I think, very early in the morning on Tuesday. So we'll figure all this out, but we'll keep you locked in terms of what the schedule will be. Until next time, we'll talk soon.